prosecution, and possible conviction. And number two, and importantly so, is to ensure that assets that can be linked to proceeds of crime or corruptly acquired resources should be returned to the owners, the citizens of Zambia. After all, the whole idea of the fight against corruption is not just conviction, but deterrence. We have noted in the past where some individuals have gotten convicted on allegations of corruption, they go and serve those sentences, they utilize the same proceeds that are associated to the alleged corrupt activities to defend themselves in the courts of law. That is why many persons who are faced with corruption allegations will always have a lawyer stand by, because many of them have resources. And at the end of serving a conviction, they return to society to enjoy the proceeds of crime. That is why this administration has emphasized asset recovery, because conviction alone and serving a sentence is not adequate to ameliorate and mitigate against the lost economic opportunities by the citizens. Let me take this opportunity, therefore, to urge Zambians not to trivialize the efforts of the law enforcing agencies in the fight against corruption simply because they are recovering assets as opposed to primarily sending persons to jail. We must note here that the law enforcing agencies are operating within not just government policy, but within the existing laws of our land that permit both prosecution to conviction and also recovery of assets to ensure beneficiation of lost assets is returned to their owners, the people. Let me indicate, therefore, that remarkable progress has been made in combating graft in this country, as evidenced by improved Transparency International Corruption Perception Index score, which in 2023 ranked Zambia from a score of 33 in 2021 to an encouraging 37, reflecting government's steadfast commitment to transparency and accountability in the management of national affairs, particularly national resources. During this period, the anti-corruption efforts led to the investigation and conclusion of 746 cases, demonstrating government's proactive stance against corrupt practices. 180 individuals were apprehended for various corrupt offenses and brought before the law. A total of 73 criminal cases were concluded in the courts of law. This judicial efficacy resulted in 49 out of 73 concluded cases into convictions, underlining government's determination to upholding justice fairness, and the rule of law. Furthermore, in a significant development, properties with an estimated total value of 204 million kwacha were forfeited to the state, marking a tangible step towards reclaiming resources tainted with corruption. These reported instances of progress are just but a reflection and a mirror image of a lot more work that is still before the hands of the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Drug Enforcement Commission, and of course, the courts of law. We would like to indicate that as government, we are aware of the concerns that the citizens have raised regarding the slow pace at which these corruption and criminal-related activities emanating and aligned with abuse of public resources, move. The government is desirous that these should move expeditiously. And that is why you have noticed law reform amendments, regulatory amendments to do with handling of cases in respect to the Financial Crimes Court that now stipulates an expeditious process through which, within a shorter period of time, these cases are concluded. We, as government, are equally desirous that those who are facing corruption allegations should have been convicted. Those who are right suspects should have been convicted faster than it takes. When the process takes longer, it has a tendency to undermine the morale of public confidence in the fight against corruption. But we are also very cognizant of the fact that under the rule of law, it is not the wishes and desires of men that see the wheels of justice in motion and determine the pace at which they move. It is the law. It is the processes and procedures that we as a people have established for ourselves to ensure that in a quest to upholding rule of law, wanting criminal suspects, the right ones to be convicted, that no innocent citizen should be found guilty of an offense they did not commit, or in a quest that the wheels of justice must move quickly to secure convictions and therefore quench public appetite that the fight against corruption is now gaining gravity. We will therefore, however, remain steadfast as government to ensure that the wheels of justice move reasonably, to ensure that the citizens continue to have faith and confidence in the state apparatus they have set up for themselves in the fight against corruption. Let me now respond to the issue that has been raised where there is an accusation that President Hakainde Hichilema's cabinet is the worst in the history of Zambia, and that it is now possibly committing economic genocide in the decisions it is making. We would like to indicate that government has taken note of the scathing and unfounded accusations leveled against President Hakainde Hichilema's cabinet by academician Azo Banda. While government respects the right to freedom of expression and speech by all citizens, we cannot let such malicious, unsubstantiatable, and unfounded and misplaced statements go unchallenged. These allegations of economic genocide and contempt for the masses are not only false, but also damaging to the reputation of the country and its economic management, something that is capable of holding a tendency to undermine investor confidence in our country. Such careless statements should be dismissed with a contempt deserving. The UPND government has worked tirelessly to address the economic challenges inherited from previous administrations and has made significant strides in the promotion of economic growth, job creation, and social economic development of our country. This is evidenced by the robust application of economic recovery measures and programs by the government, firstly, that include prudent management of national resources, adherence to the rule of law, to ensure that there is no abuse of public resources and of public affairs. Further, the government has gone ahead to implement policies and programs and measures that are aimed at mitigating the sufferings of our people in the midst of the economic challenges that this administration inherited, including what people already know: programs of free education, reinstatement of meal allowances to students at public universities, expanded constituency development fund, disbursement and distribution of farming inputs in time, way before the rainy season, paying farmers who supply to FRA there and then. This is unprecedented. We recall that even under the UNIP administration, those who supplied maize to Nambot in May, June, July would be paid somewhere in October, September, October. But now, FRA, as it is doing now as we speak, is buying maize, and you deliver, and there and then you are paid cash and not a promissory note. This, in our view, is progress. We have seen measures being put in place that have led to the resuscitation of Mopane mines after a process of bringing an equity partner to ensure sustainable investments in Mopane. And today, as we speak, those investment dividends are already beginning to show fruits on the copper belt. More than 200 million United States dollars has already been invested in payments to local suppliers who were owed money by Mopane for years, from the time including before this administration of President Hakainde Hichilema took office. Today on the copper belt, we have Kilwe City Council celebrating that they have been paid 82 million kwacha giving them fiscal ability to dispense of the debts for which has been presenting nightmares to the council, such as failure to pay benefits to those who have left the council, failure to meet service and recurrent bills such as electricity and water. Today, Mweetwa City Council, which is primarily run by the opposition, has had no option but to join the chorus in celebrating the milestones that have been attained by this administration, not for itself, but for the country at large. Today, the Copper Belt is coming back to life. KCM negotiations are concluding, and KCM is coming on stream to begin production. From a meager 65,000 metric tons of copper produced in the last 3 years per annum before by Mopane, there is now a projection that by next year, Mopane will begin to produce its optimal capacity volumes of about 220,000 metric tons, adding volumes and ability towards government's projection of producing 3 million metric tons, for which is the minimum that we think at those levels of production. Then the Zambians will begin to get genuine dividends from our mining potential. 3 days ago, over just this last weekend, the dewatering of shaft 28 in Luansha mine commenced, arising out of the president having commissioned the dewatering process a few weeks ago in Luansha. It is estimated that once that mine comes to full operation, Luansha will bounce back to be a leader in the economic mix of the Copper Belt and for the country. These are the realities which are unfolding right in front of our eyes. First Quantum Minerals were scheduled to scale down their productions, and they have since recommitted to an investment of about $2 billion United States dollars in mining development further funding. This is a clear indication that the mining sector in this country is coming back to life because of a predictable and attractive legal regime, regulatory regime, policies that are forward-looking, ensuring a win-win situation for both investors and also the citizens. Today, as we speak, for the first time under ZCC, under IDC, the country has 49% shareholding in a mine, which is Mopane. And previously, the highest we have held as a country under IDC is 20% shareholding wherever IDC has been participating in the business joint ventures of this country. This is in line with the New Dawn administration's program of action to ensure that meaningful development for our country will require investments that apportion bettering of lives of individual citizens of our countries, not just by way of being suppliers and employees, but by being joint venture owners of business. These are the realities that are obtaining in this country. And we are talking, as we sit here, about sometime in the next few years that Zambia will open Africa's biggest mine in Chilavombo. This is greenfield. We are talking of resuscitation of Kalengwa mines, operationalization of Lubambe mines. The entire Copper Belt and Northwestern Province is becoming once more a hive of mining activities. Yesterday, in Cabinet, the President directed that all those mines, Lubambe mine, Kalengwa mine, Kasenseli gold mine, should be operationalized immediately to ensure quick mobilization for production to bolster Zambia's production capacity of our minerals. Because for us to arrest the deteriorating Kwacha-dollar relationship, it has to be by way of the production of goods and services that should be an foreign income earner for our country. These are the realities happening on the ground, and we are all witnesses of the same. Today, as we speak, in the next few weeks, the President will be launching the commencement for the construction of the Lusaka-Ndola dual carriageway, which is expected to create a number of jobs for our own people and other business opportunities, such as the supply chain for the raw materials that are required in that construction. This, in our view, is progress. Only a few weeks ago, the President went to commission the Chingola-Kasumbalesa road, something which has been a challenge for a very, very long time. And when the President took over leadership in 2021, the rallying cry for many of the members of Parliament from the Copper Belt was that particular road. Today, that road has been attended to. The Member of Parliament from Nkana has been talking about the Chiburuma road and how useful it is to diverting traffic, particularly of trucks, from the active CBD, and also how, when it is worked on, it will reduce crime on that road, because motorists using that particular road would get attacked because of the pothole nature that would slow traffic on that road. That today we are talking is part of history, as mobilization and construction for that road is underway. These are the realities on the ground, and that is why it is hair-raising to find somebody just talk as if they don't live in Zambia, to say this cabinet is committed economic genocide for this country because of the decisions that the country is making. I would like to indicate that your government remains committed to serving all Zambians fairly, with steadfast approach, regardless of political affiliation, political positioning, socio-economic status, or indeed any other sectarian consideration. This is a government that has come to save all citizens, regardless of where you are. This is a government that has come to end cheap politics of saying we will only take development where you voted for us, because it realizes and appreciates that the money that it sets aside to develop this country is not party or individual monies. It is money belonging to the taxpayer. This government is only doing that which it was elected to do. And therefore, it must be given space to do what it is doing, which in our view is the right thing to be done at this moment, when the economic policies of this administration are beginning to yield tangible fruits. We are at a time when, as a country, we are the leaders on the continent and beyond in a successful negotiation of debt restructuring, both with official and private creditors. And countries that were ahead of us have now been left to begin to learn from us as to what exactly we put in place to attain this feat. But of course, the number one component is to have a credible and reliable leadership that operates in a transparent and accountable manner, both to its citizens and also to all interested parties in the developmental agenda of our country, our continent, and of course, the global village. We therefore would like, as government, to urge our citizens to reject such political rhetoric and instead engage in further constructive dialogue with government to promote national development. The government will continue to maintain an open door policy in the governance of this country. And those who mean well will come through to advise this government in a sober and genuine manner. Those who will come, like the way the leader of our Citizens First Party, Harry Kalaba, purported to have done last week, masquerading as advising government, yet taking an opportunity to mock governments. We will see through those such cheap political schemes, and we may not respond to that because we knew that Harry Kalaba's letter to His Excellency the President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, was a cheap political stunt meant to create and aggrandize himself of political visibility on the landscape, political landscape of our country. No more or less than that. Because if he meant advice, his language would have been laced with sobriety and not sarcasm. It was also self-evident that he did not even know what he was doing in that letter and what he wanted to achieve. Because in one breath, towards the end of that letter, and I'm sure as journalists, all of you read, in one breath, he called on the president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, to resign. Immediately after that full stop, he then appealed to His Excellency, I'm appealing to you, Your Excellency, to put in place measures that will better the livelihoods of our people. I'm sure you read that, all of you. So how do you expect someone you are calling on to resign to be able to address the issues you are raising in your communication? I think there is despondency in the mindset of some of our opposition leaders. They have run out of ideas. They have run out of ideas. And we have been consistently advising the best way you can be relevant to the people. First of all, seek a genuine mandate from the citizens so that when you speak, you have a mandate from the people to speak on their behalf. You can't be a one-man show, National Neka Party, and every day you purport to be speaking on the behalf of the citizens. We recently held 9 by-elections, and many of these regular political commentators positioning themselves as opposition political leaders, their parties did not participate. You find Citizens Party who participate in one election in Chiengi. There was a by-election in Londazi, they could not participate. In Luwena, they could not participate. Socialist Party will participate in Gwembe and failed to field candidates elsewhere. So this distorted approach is distorting their mandate, and that is why they are speaking in a distorted manner. And you saw all the 9 by-elections swept by the ruling party. Out of 60 by-elections held in the last now to be 3 years of UPND, the ruling party has scooped 57 out of 60. It tells you the story that the opposition are not connected with the grassroots. And they can't even allege violence. They can't even allege that they were not given space to campaign. Many citizens were not even aware that there were by-elections, because in Zambia, by-elections are known to have been akin to political violence in the past, and that is what has been giving them visibility to ordinary citizens. They went eventless, peacefully. And one thing to note is that out of these 60 by-elections, they have been occasioned either by death of an office bearer or by a councillor of the Patriotic Front applying for a job, mainly as teachers. And they get employed because this administration has no time to look at your name, where you come from. It has no time to look at which political party you are affiliated with. It has time to look at your qualification and if it meets the meritorious standards demanded of to get a job. And we all get it that, oh, so this one was a councillor of PF. When a particular local authority writes to the ECZ to say there has been occasion, a vacancy here arising out of a resignation by a particular councillor, because such a councillor has been employed by the Ministry of Education. There has been no exchange of jobs for political expedience as it used to be in the past. No councillor, no mayor, no MP has been purchased like tomato. Nothing. This president, in the recent history of our democracy, from 1991. He is the first president to have been elected via such a landslide that it has given him enough buffer zone not to worry about his hold on power. Rather, he's worried about the economy and the challenges affecting the citizens of this country. And that is why today you can do your research. This is the first president not to be associated with causing a by-election. I was startled to see the Socialist Party media director, my young brother Brian Hapuna, say that, commenting on the just ended by-elections and stating that these by-elections were induced by the UPND. Well, again, freedom of speech. We have to entertain such kind of political comment. But then the citizens should dismiss that with the deserving contempt. Because President HH has pronounced himself as to how he stands in relation to by-elections, starting with his first address to the National Assembly in September 2021, when he told Parliament that I am not interested in by-elections because they are an unnecessary drain and waste to taxpayers' money. And that was at an interesting and critical time when a number of opposition seats were petitioned mainly by those who had lost elections from the ruling party. Not because we wanted more seats, but because of wanting to address the glaring, violations of electoral laws and other laws of the country at that particular time. And I can now tell you that that statement went a long way in the governance of this country. A long way. And I speak with full understanding of the law about what constitutes national interest. And when the president made that pronouncement, it amounted to a government policy for which, even when decisions of court are made, contemplation must have been had as to what government policy is in relation to by-elections. And that is, you saw a number of those petitions were thrown away and taxpayers' money was saved from by-elections. So how today can this administration be accused of fomenting by-elections? It's just that it is giving opportunity for employment to all without looking at political connections, rather academic qualification and merits. And we hope it remains this way, because people, citizens, should get employed that way and not through political offices as it used to be before. And therefore all of us as citizens must guard this gain we have made in the governance of our country. Let me quickly just comment on the issues to do with statements in line with stated plans to increase load shedding hours by ZESCO. Firstly, your government acknowledges public concern regarding the potential increase in load shedding hours. We would like to indicate that it is important to provide context and transparency on this particular matter. I would like to indicate that the decision to potentially increase load shedding hours is not taken lightly and is directly linked to the current challenges we face with decreasing water flows at the Zambezi River, particularly at Chavuma. As of Monday 60th of May 2024, the river flows close at 750 cubic meters per second, significantly lower than the 1,317 cubic meters per second recorded on the same date last year. And that these reduced water flows have impacted the hydroelectricity power generation capacity, which plays a crucial role in our national power supply. As a result, there is a real concern that increased load shedding hours may become necessary to manage the available electricity resources effectively. Further, I would like to indicate that regarding the suggestion to immediately start importation of power to cushion the about 750 megawatts electricity deficit, it is important to note that this is already an ongoing program, as ZESCO is already importing power from Mozambique. And I can now indicate that recently ZESCO sent a team to go and negotiate further power purchase agreements from Mozambique and other electricity or energy suppliers who are anchored around that region. We would like to indicate that government understands the challenges that our people are faced with. We are concerned that increased load shedding hours will decrease productivity and business activity in the nation, which is likely to affect the economic growth of our country. To this end, the government is putting in place measures to explore viable options to ensure a stable and reliable power supply to our people, that include efforts to diversify our energy sources and improve overall energy efficiency. The government, through the Ministry of Energy, will soon be announcing some of the measures and projects that are going to be funded for immediate construction and or importation of power to mitigate this power shortage after the alignment of the national budget. I'm aware, for instance, that the Ministry of Local Government has already sent out a correspondence to all local authorities indicating realignment of CDF towards drought response, programs and or projects. The Ministry of Energy had the opportunity to speak to the Minister this morning will soon be announcing, so that the nation should know how their government is tackling this. In the meantime, we call for calm. And I would like to reiterate here that this particular announcement was not done in consultation with the government. The ERB, however, within their mandate, came up with their announcement. But I must indicate here that notwithstanding their mandate, there is a standing practice which at law, a repeated and acceptable practice becomes a law. That when there has to be an announcement with grave consequences that affect drastically the livelihood of our people, the economics, household economics of our people, government must be consulted, because they are the ones who are held accountable by the citizens in the decisions made by ERB or any other such regulatory body. Citizens will never call on ERB to explain anything. Citizens will never call on ERB to account for their decision. They will call on the people they voted for. And that is why, even when one says any other person who takes over ERB will still do the same thing. Yes, they may do the same thing, but in consultation with government if a decision they are about to announce is of grave ramification. So that timing, which came just after another, after the announcement of the fuel adjustment, did not sit well with government. And no one can pretend in government that that announcement sat well. The announcement to increase ZESCO tariffs barely a day after an announcement to increase the fuel price did not sit well with government. Because as elected officials, we know that even if an announcement must come, there should be timing to it, to give people an opportunity to adjust. In this particular case, the fuel upward adjustment of fluctuation should have been given an opportunity for the citizens to begin to absorb that shock which came, because it was unanticipated. And therefore you can't mutatis mutandis there and then announce another increase. What time do citizens have to stabilize the shocks that will come with those adjustments? So it is right. There should be no speculation to say it would appear there was no consultation, it would appear it did not sit well with those in government. That is a fact. There was no consultation on a very important decision that would affect the normal living of our people. Those two important decisions or announcements could not have come together, because then they have a telling effect on the livelihoods of our people. Secondly, I'd like to indicate that when a board sits to pass a vote of no confidence, they are doing it as board members and not in any other capacity. And there are insinuations by some sections of our society that the Director General or is it the CEO of ERB and the board chairman of ERB were removed on ethnicity-based considerations. Such sentiments are fallacious. They are mischievous. They are of no good standing. They emanate from those quarters of individuals whose consideration and analysis of things is clogged and blared by ethnic consideration in the way they look at things. If we are going to govern our country, that a certain group of people, even if something is done by one coming from a particular ethnic orientation, then when administrative action is taken, then some people turn around, no, this because it's tribe, because it's ethnicity. That is cheap politics. And we call upon our citizens not to fall for such kind of politics. Because if that is going to be the way we are going to govern our country, it means at every stage in any government institution, a decision is made, there is bound to rise a particular group of people alleging ethnic consideration in that action. We ask politicians to do their politics the right way and not use innocent citizens of this country who live as one under the banner, one Zambia, one nation, as citizens of this country and not isolated entities. This was already demonstrated as a matter rejected and buried by the people of this country during the 2021 general elections. Therefore, those who wish to make political capital out of this, they must look for issues that can appeal to genuine voters of this country. There has been also a call for the reintroduction of subsidies to arrest the escalating cost of living, subsidize fuel, for instance. I would like to indicate that presently the government Republic of Zambia has no immediate intentions to reintroduce fuel subsidies. This is because the fuel subsidies, firstly, cannot be reintroduced in the face of a debt which was inherited by this administration, which it is still in process to liquidate or pay. An attempt to introduce subsidy, therefore, would just escalate the deficit, financial deficit situation the country finds itself in terms of the energy sector. The prudent thing to do is to continue to pay off the debt while continue the supply of the commodity fuel at market reflective prices, cognizant of the fact that other subsidies have already been instituted in this country that have cushioned the household economic situation of our people, such as free education, and that has a wide range impact across the country, touching on vulnerable families who were plagued with the nightmare of looking for money to pay for their children and orphans to go to school. Various other forms of support are in place. Social cash transfer has been doubled. And I would like to indicate here that at the sitting of Cabinet on Monday 6th, Cabinet approved an emergency social cash transfer, which is different from the existing social cash transfer. This particular one is aimed at and targeted at vulnerable families and citizens of our country because of this natural drought, which has affected 84 districts out of the 116 districts. So the cabinet approved this emergency social cash transfer so that vulnerable families in those places affected by climate change can be given emergency financial assistance, even as government is also assisting families to do with the actual foodstuffs such as mealie meal and or maize. I also want to indicate that this fuel subsidy presently would be deemed as a luxury by cooperating partners, those who are working or were working with in the dismantling or negotiation of the debt. There are commitments, financial discipline commitments that the government Republic of Zambia undertook to perform in order to arrive at a debt restructuring settlement. And therefore, the government will not renege on those commitments that ensure that we stay the course to project prudent financial management of our country, knowing very well that it is biting for our people now, but the situation will soon get better given the fiscal headroom or space we have attained after debt restructuring. Let me now end. I think that I've spoken. The other issues we'll deal with them the next engagement. Let me now speak to particularly some of the resolutions that the Cabinet passed on its sitting of 6th May 2024, which was a day ago on Monday. Number 1, Cabinet resolved to enhance distribution of maize through community sales to depots where this maize was purchased from by FRA. The Cabinet resolved and instructed the Committee of Ministers on the National Disaster, led by the Vice President, to immediately put up a task force and working team that is now going to be involved in a robust redistribution of FRA maize that includes at the core of it the involvement of our defense forces for expeditious and rapid distribution of such relief efforts. Number 2, Cabinet resolved that all the relief maize which has already been released by government through DMMU and has been lying for a number of weeks at various district centers in parts of the country be immediately distributed to stressed and vulnerable communities through the various modes of distribution, including food for work. Number 3, that FRA enhances the purchase of the white non-GMO grade 1 maize produced locally and that produced from outside the country at the price announced by the FRA of 330 a kwacha, and that payment should be prompt. The last one, which I consider to be the most important of those that I will announce, is Cabinet resolved that in view of the maize deficit challenge the country is faced with, arising out of this drought, government immediately suspends tax on all imported maize into Zambia in order to lower the cost of landing maize at a milling plant and therefore inform the price of milling meal therefrom. The Ministry of Finance was instructed by Cabinet to immediately promulgate a statutory instrument to effectuate this particular Cabinet decision. To this end, the government would like the citizens to know that the processes of importation of maize from our neighboring countries is underway. That government will be at the center of importing such maize for strategic food storage purposes, strategic food reserve purposes, but would like to encourage the private sector to seize that as an opportunity for them to engage in the importation of maize into this country, and those who are desirous, the Ministry of Agriculture was instructed to give permits to Zambians. The Cabinet also resolved that in this importation of maize in Zambia, into Zambia, Zambian truckers will be the ones deployed for the haulage of such maize in order to capacitate that particular fraternity. Dear colleagues, countrymen and women, I thank you for the opportunity. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Colleagues with questions, you can come through here, but before that, let me just read out questions from online. The first question is coming from Danton Dixon Yobu. He's saying that, is it helpful to the suffering citizen for your government to increase fuel electricity tariffs and now 12 years? And the second question is coming from Jackson Mlenga. It's saying, what short measures has government put in place to address the continued poorly performance of the kwacha against other currencies? And the third question is the IBA Act being amended to choke us, the ordinary citizen, from airing our views, knowing the fact that social media has become a great medium of information ascendance. And this one was coming from Jonas Mweetwa. Then we have the fourth question coming from Peter Piri from Lola. This one is saying, now that government has managed debt restructuring, is it possible to take the available resource meant to service the debt to subsidize fuel and food commodities like maize? These are questions from the social media platforms, Honorable Minister. And now you allow me to take the questions from colleagues here. Then you respond as we transition to the 13 answers.
Good afternoon, my name is Mweetwa. I just wanted clarity really on the fuel subsidy. So you say that it would be deemed as a luxury. And so I wanted to find out, was one of the conditions for debt restructuring not putting subsidies?
My name is Roland Kalangu from Astro TV. I have two questions, Honorable Minister. The first one, concerning the Angola-Zambia oil pipeline. which was first mentioned in 2022, and we saw last year in March, the Energy Minister talking about it, stating that he was waiting for feasibility studies to be made so that this could be actualized. When is this going to be actualized, and how far has the ministry gone into conducting the feasibility so that the land products, or should I call them oil, that can be transported using the land can start coming into the country? Then the second one, the accusations from the Deputy Secretary General of the Socialist Party concerning the recent ended elections, where he has accused government, or should I say the UPND, for using state vehicles, especially in Mweetwa ward in Chiengi district, where a vehicle was spotted and judged to have been doing campaigns in that area, and also that in Wangwa and Bwembe, their candidates were abducted, and the matter was reported to police and the ECZ, and nothing was done. So it's basically saying the recent elections were marred with violence and were not free and fair. Maybe a comment on that one.
So, Honorable Minister will respond to those questions and Simon.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, dear colleagues who have come through other platforms for you to participate in this particular discourse, and for the questions from the journalists. And if you allow me, let me quickly run through the questions that have come through those who are here in the House, so that I can give due attention to those that have come through the stream. Diggers, was it a condition that we should not have subsidies? That is not what I said. That is not what I said. What I said is that the condition, one of the conditions that led to us attaining debt restructuring was a commitment to prudent management and utilization of public resources, and therefore to a donor, for instance, a fuel subsidy at that level is deemed a luxury, because whereas you are a debtor, you want to look good by subsidizing a commodity which you can't afford. That is why there is emphasis that until the economy stabilizes, we must get fuel at cost-reflective pricing. There should be no appeasement of a subsidy, because come to think about it, a subsidy, you can only give what you have. You can't give what you don't have. That is a simple matrix. Here we are announcing, is it about 900 million United States dollars basket requirement of resources to respond to the drought crisis. And the people who have to put that money, you are requesting to come to your aid. Here, that you are subsidizing fuel, which they consider that it can be acquired at cost-reflective prices, you are sending double messages of your tragedy. You are saying, yes, we're in a tragedy, but as government, we want to look good. We want you to shoulder the weight, give us that money, which essentially you are assisting us from your taxpayers. Then us, we want to look good. We want to begin to give it as handouts so that we look good as a government. That is exactly the reason why today we are in this crisis, where we owe oil marketing companies more than 700 million United States dollars because of political appeasement in government's decisions for service delivery to its people. There must come a time when you say, for this period, let's tighten our belts to ensure that the equation of our economics is put in order. This is that such time. This is time for us to do the right things. We owe more than $700 million. We are asking for $900 million to come to our aid over the drought. Then where will the money come from to subsidize when we are asking for help? So those who are calling for subsidy, it will be welcome for them to point out the areas. I do receive messages here, some even suggesting that we should scrap off CDF, scrap off free education, and subsidize fuel. Why do you want an orphan who is able now to be sent by the grandmother to go to school, that such an orphan should stop going to school because you want a motorist to buy fuel at a price you think is reasonable? Why? We must, and as journalists, must also talk for those who are the voiceless. In these rural areas, the majority of the beneficiaries of these measures of government, such as free education, do not have the opportunity that Sean Tembo or Hari Karaba have. Hari Karaba is working in luxury, I think somewhere in Kablonga. He does not participate in by-elections in rural areas. How do you expect him to appreciate that the rural people in remote areas appreciate that subsidy, education subsidy? We can't get it and say we subsidize motorists. And we are all motorists. And the beauty is that this president has led the way by ensuring that he's leading the call to sacrifice. By the way, he's availing opportunities to his administration. And I've been saying this time and again. For the first time, unprecedented so. All his ministers, top government officials, he has even said, even parastatals, we are one government. No one buying new vehicles, particularly ministers. Some of you, in the last 1 month, you have been meeting me where I've been driving a very small vehicle because my ministerial vehicle was at the garage, broken down. Because that's a vehicle that Honorable Dora Syria left for me to inherit. So that is a mark of leadership by the president in this time where we are calling on our citizens to sacrifice. Angola-Zambia pipeline, I would like to indicate here that I need the latest information so that I speak from an informed position. This is issue specific and I need to consult the ministry related. The issue of feasibility study therefore, using state vehicles during campaigns, well, I think that if there was any DC or any government official or a minister who went to be seen in an area where there was a by-election, that is unacceptable. If anybody used public resources during the just ended by-elections, that has no blessings from President HH. It has no blessings from his administration. Those people were doing it as an affront to the law. And we would encourage those who know those individuals to report them to the police, to report them to the ECZ, and of course to other authorities. Because I'm aware of the guidance the president has given, that when as ministers we want to go into participation of by-elections, none of us should go with a ministerial vehicle or any government vehicle, even if it is bearing an emblem not GRZ, but any other number, but it is a government vehicle. So those who may have done it, they have no blessings from the president. And I would like to encourage, going forward, that if such a thing happens, anyone who may have done that should not repeat it. There is no room for abuse under this administration. But my office has no record of that having happened. As to issues of violence in Zambia, in Zambia's by-elections, did not and does not need to be admitted by me that it was there or it was not there. We know where we've come from. By now, such violence should have taken center stage in social media. Nowadays, anything that happens is captured. I'm waiting for a video to be shared and for someone to associate it with the election of Gwembe, with the election of Chiengi, with the election of Ndanda in Luena, or any other place where there was an election. I'm not aware of any. So I can't speak to something which there is no evidence. Because when it comes to violence now, even a motor vehicle has been involved in an accident or is burning, you see that shortly it will be all over. Now such a truck is burning between Kapiri and Kabwe. What about violence? Why would those who were involved or the victims not shoot a video? That is, that is just, they are just crying foul. Because losing an election, sometimes it takes magnanimity for you to accept. Let's face facts. They have to do more work on the ground. They are capable of winning. But when they go to campaign, on the premise they do, it might take them a little longer than it has taken them to have gravitas on the ground. Is it helpful to increase fuel and electricity and now toffees? I think we have already responded to the substance of fuel and electricity, and therefore what remains for me is to indicate that there is no proposal whatsoever known by cabinet as a proposal to increase toll fees on our roads. That is just a commingled concoction of the opposition in their enterprising endeavor of propaganda to mislead perception by the citizens that this government is en route making decisions that economically harm our citizens. There is no such proposal whatsoever, and it must be dismissed with the contempt it deserves and ascribed to the right people, such as my good friend Emmanuel Mwamba, Harry Karaba. The whole list of propagandists, I have it. There are, some of those are the leaders. IBA, is it being amended to choke citizens? Well, I think this matter came to the fore over the period, over the World Press Freedom Day. And I would like to indicate that the IBA, Independent Broadcasting Authority Act of 2022, is not being amended to stifle freedoms of speech and expression on social media by our people. Social media is already adequately regulated by Cybersecurity and Cybercrimes Act of 2021. Let me highlight this point, that what I saw being debated during the World Press Freedom Day by some media houses as government position on the IBA. The government wants now to regulate social media. The government wants to do this. That is a layman's draft, which is a compilation of citizens' proposals, which has since been submitted to this ministry, en route to the Ministry of Justice, for it now to be transformed into a draft bill, after which it shall be surrendered to the stakeholders who had an input in it, to see whether the spirit of what they had proposed has been carried during the legal drafting. It is after that that then the Committee of Ministers on Legislation will sit to look at that draft bill before presenting it to Cabinet. When it is presented to Cabinet, what Cabinet will approve is now what can be said to the government position. For now, it is erroneous to ascribe any contents of that layman's bill as a proposal from government. Government does not make laws. Laws are made by the citizens. Government facilitates that citizens make their laws through the institutions created for such purpose. And one of them was even a media practitioner who was here when we explained all this. So I'm calling on the media to play their role. Moderators of discussion programs on TV and radio. You should also play your role. Do your research before you host panelists, so that when panelists are talking out of context, bring them in order, because your profession is an enlightened one. That's what I do sometimes. I ask you what you think makes sense for me to say, because I know your business is information. You have more information than me. But me, I just speak because of the position. But you have more information than me. Why do you allow people on your platforms to mislead the nation? Play your part so that panelists know. If I go and appear on hot seat, if I go and appear on Oxygen of Democracy, on government forum, I'll be taken to task for what I say. And not let people speak carte blanche. You are reneging on your obligation as a fourth estate, as media. I think the other one is about really subsidy on fuel, and for whoever spoken enough to that. Unless there is anything else, I want to thank you, dear colleagues, for coming, and for those who have joined through various platforms. This was our media engagement, in which we seek to pronounce government's position on various national issues. And like I've indicated before, we will take this opportunity to pronounce government policy, positions of government, cabinet resolutions, but we also use it for government to respond to issues raised by citizens individually or as organizations, civil society, or political parties. Because in a democracy, a dialogue can emanate from any quarter. It doesn't need to be us all the time prompting issues to set the agenda of debate. A genuine democracy recognizes that we, as citizens, must be able to meet in the marketplace of ideas and share information. Through this interaction, government also learns certain things and takes note of other things that it needs to consider as it goes about making decisions in the governance of our country. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. And since all the questions have been answered, I think we end our government and media engagement for today, Wednesday, the 8th of May, 2024, and back to the studio.